through 3 or 4 states. That seems like a lot of state legislators and county commissioners to grease. What do you do politically to get this thing moving through Nevada?
Well, go ahead. Well, I think it's one of the challenges of a project like this is it is complex, and that's why there has not been a major interstate transmission line built in the West in a number of years, in fact several decades. And so, but everyone understands there is a need in the West for better transmission, and we're finding very receptive folks here in Nevada. Public policy makers and decision makers are very open. They understand the issue, and they want to bring new electric sources into Nevada because of the growth that's projected in this state.
Okay.
Well, yeah. I also
impact on the land, on the resources. You're going to be cutting a wide path for these towers. Are they going to go through the Ruby Mountains, or are they going to go through the pristine Humboldt National Forest?
The answer is no. We have actually, I think, maybe a map we could show about the route of the proposal through Nevada. Yeah. And I think one of the nice things about DC, direct current transmission versus AC, which is most of the power lines people are familiar with, they take up a lot less space. They're shorter, they aren't as wide, and so in some ways, if you're doing an electric transmission project, DC is definitely the way to go in terms of environmental and aesthetic benefit.
Okay, and especially in White Pine County right now, people are upset because Las Vegas, they say, is trying to take their water. Now you're going to run power lines through their county for the benefit of Las Vegas. What do the people out of White Pine, out of Elko, out of Lincoln County get out of this?
Well, some of the things, Mike has talked about getting power out of the states like Wyoming, Montana, and Idaho, but there's also potential to also generate some power up in northern Nevada. There's huge wind resources up there. We've been in discussions with some of the developers about that. There's also discussion about some new generation up in the Ely area, so that would be, and the way the line would work, people could put power on, take power off as well. And so it could also benefit the ratepayers of northern Nevada, as well as help stimulate some economic development in that corner of Nevada to generate jobs and tax revenue.
And let's talk about that transmission when we come back. At this point, there is no way to really transmit power between the north and the south, correct?
That is the big flaw.
In the Silver State.
That's correct, Sam. One of the problems in the West is that there's a lot of north-south transmissions, especially on the coast. But where all the energy resources are is more in the interior, and how do you get those from east to west in places like southern Nevada and elsewhere? And so that's one of the main goals of the Northern Lights project, is how do you get the energy from where it is to where the people who need it are.
Well, and also isn't there a...
Let's speak about the consumers. If this line is built, is there potential for energy costs to go down for Las Vegas?
Well, I think the question would be potential is going to be on a whole lot of different factors. I think the focus this year on energy prices has been on gasoline. The focus this winter will be on home heating, electricity, natural gas. Clearly, energy is a big issue. It's going to be a bigger issue. To stabilize prices and perhaps reduce them, all the West, and Nevada included, needs a more diversified supply of energy, and we think the Northern Lights project does that, because you can't have everything in natural gas, you can have everything in coal. Renewables are still being developed. So one of the things Northern Lights does is provide consumers with additional options, with additional sources, and that should stabilize prices, as Mike said, at a very competitive price.
Yeah. There are many people that think above ground power lines are not only unsightly, but they're also unhealthy. Is there any talk or discussion about burying these lines underground?
Well, I'll let Mike talk about it because he's more the engineer, but there are some benefits in that regard to DC transmission lines versus AC. And we'll talk about the magnetic.
Burying is economically just doesn't work at all because the cost goes up by a factor of 5 or 10. But if we go to we actually have the slide on now. This shows a typical transmission corridor that would carry between 3,000 and 4,000 megawatts of power over AC transmission. And then the next slide shows a comparable amount of transmission capacity on a DC set of towers. That's one set of towers, they're shorter, obviously you're using up a lot less land, and then also from the other effector that people are concerned about is EMF. Well, with DC transmission, you don't get EMF.
You better explain that.
Electromagnetic fields, and so you don't get the EMF from DC. So we really think this is a very, very attractive solution for the West and specifically for Nevada. But also, we've invited the other utilities in the region to participate in the project with us.
I just wanted to add about that because I think we haven't talked on this yet, is that Northern Lights is a subsidiary of TransCanada, which is one of Canada's largest and most respected companies. Have over $18 billion of assets on the New York Stock Exchange. And one thing is, people should make sure we understand, we're not asking for any money from the state of Nevada or anybody else. This will be a private investment. TransCanada is looking for partners, but this is going to be privately financed. It's not going to be a publicly financed project.
Does the project have anything, a component of wind power Could you speak about
Yes,
that?
we think it's going to be exceptionally attractive for wind power. One of the issues with wind is it's a little more expensive to develop than some of the other more conventional fossil fuels. Also, the wind tends to be in places where people don't live a lot. I mean, it's out in sort of in rural areas. And so one of the problems with wind, if you're on an AC system, is that you have to it can only deliver a fairly short part to the market. Plus, if it's a localized market, it's great when the wind blows, but when the wind's not blowing, then how consumers rely on that. By having this sort of energy superhighway, which I think is the best way to think of a DC transmission line, we've created an economy of scale where you can develop a whole lot of wind projects feeding into the line. And so maybe the wind is blowing hard in northern Nevada, it's not blowing in Montana, but then you have that consistency so the wind power can come on. So we think it actually makes wind power more economically viable to have it attached to a project like this than if you keep it only as localized, selling it to just the local utilities alone.
Very interesting stuff, gentlemen. We look forward to hearing more as the project goes along.